lions, gorillas for those our fine national parks wey una dey see so. But all these animals dem don dey die throway because dem just dey kill dem anyhow. Kenya, South Africa and other countries dey make big money on top all dis wildlife matter o. That's why we talk say make we come try put hand to protect these animals because e go fit put food for our table so. Abeg, make una say no to killing of all these animals wey government talk say make we no dey kill. Because na all of us dey short comot as we dey kill dis animal anyhow.
In Lagos.
Hi, my name is Baba.
We took 12 young men and women.
Hi guys, my name is Uzo.
Away from their careers and hustles for 60 days.
I'm Sijani.
And we put them through tasks.
Hello everyone, my name is Tara.
That test their limits.
Hello, my name is Brian.
Endurance.
Hi, I'm Michelle.
And wit.
That is engine oil. Dirty that car. You have 4 minutes.
Surviving and creating relevance has never been for the faint-hearted. It's a jungle out there.
Come on.
You are off the Raider team and you can no longer wear Raider swag. Let it go. Be tired or not, please. What the are you talking about?
This is The Rush by Pop Central.
Work and work hard, and I think, don't rush. But people are rushing to put their story. Script writing, for example, writing is rewriting, to get a tight script so that when you finally get to the filming of it, you've got something that's tight and concise and not played with over talking or over explanation. So I think more time needs to be spent on analyzing scripts and structure and story structure. And but carrying on with the improvements in visual improvement and visual storytelling, as well as in a sound as well. So but I think this younger
Hello and welcome. Tonight, we turn our attention to the rising flood crisis across Nigeria, with over 30 states and the FCT under flood alert and more than 739 communities facing high risks. The threat is not just seasonal, it is national, humanitarian and developmental. From the devastating disaster in Moka that claims hundreds of lives to fresh reports of casualties in Adamawa State, Nigerians are asking the hard questions. Why do we keep losing lives every year despite the floods alert? What are governments at all levels doing? What must change to stop the circle of disaster, posing significant challenges to factors like inadequate infrastructure, poor urban planning, and climate change? Effective mitigation requires a multifaceted approach involving improved flood prediction systems, better urban planning, and public awareness campaign. Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live shall focus on flood prediction, challenges, and mitigation with a cross-section of guests. I am Jumba Yusuf. And before we go into the conversation segment, let's take a listen to this background report put together by Correspondent Musa Baba Aliu.
Devastating floods fueled by heavy rainfall, dam failures, and clogged drainage systems are wreaking havoc across Nigeria, with 27 states facing imminent danger. The Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency has issued an urgent warning highlighting the risk to 739 communities across 162 local government areas between July 2022 and August 5. This year alone, Nigeria has endured 2 catastrophic floods. On May 28, a flood in Mokwa, Niger State, claimed 200 lives and left over 600 people missing. More recently, in July 26, 2027, flood in Adamawa killed 23 and many still unaccounted for. Experts attribute the escalating crisis to a combination of natural factors like prolonged rainfall and human activities, including dam mismanagement and urban development obstructing water flow. Professor Meiro Mohammed of the Federal University of Technology, Mina, emphasized the need for robust measures to combat worsening weather patterns driven by global warming.
There is need for tree planting so that our environment will be kind of safe. The more the number of trees, the more water infiltrates into the soil. And then this will also reduce the amount of runoff we have everywhere, whether there are shorter trees or tall trees. There is also need to enforce environmental laws. You know, people just dump waste anywhere without anyone taking responsibility for that. And if the laws are enforced, definitely I think it will reduce the impact. Also, people need to be sensitized not to build houses along waterways, because like what happens in Mokwa recently, I think was it in May or so, we believe people also built their houses along these waterways. And if you do that, then there's a possibility that your house will be flooded.
Nigeria Hydrological Services heightened vigilance in states including Anambra, Adamawa, Kebbi, Niger, and Kogi. Authorities and communities must act swiftly to mitigate the crisis and protect lives. Environmentalists are pressing for answers. Are there adequate plans to manage flood risk? What protection exists for residents in vulnerable areas? What is the status of the dam that collapsed in Maiduguri last year? Musa Baba Aliyu.
Thank you so much, Musa Baba Aliyu, for that background report. And I have seated here in the studio my guest that will break down the conversation. And I begin with Mr. Stephen Jabo, Technical Advisor to DG Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency. You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam.
Tuesday Live.
And good evening, our viewers.
We also have Air Commodore Kenneth Oyong, Director Search and Rescue National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA.
Good evening, Jumai. Good evening, Nigerians. It's a pleasure to be here once again.
It's a pleasure to have you join us. And Professor Abba Gambo, Department of Crop Production, University of Maiduguri. You're welcome to Tuesday.
Thank you very much. Greetings from Maiduguri, Jumai.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Kana Awoka Ahmed, Geologist, GM Nasara Water Board.
It's a pleasure.
The regular also on Tuesday Live.
Thank you
And Kunle Awajemila, Deputy Director, Erosion, Flood and Coastal Management, Federal Ministry of Environment. You're welcome to Tuesday Live.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Now let's dig into the questions now. I'll begin with Hydrological Agency. Can we walk us through, how flood predictions are carried out by the Hydrological Agency, and how do you spread the message across the country?
Thank you very much. One of the mandates of Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency is flood forecasting and issuing of early warning. Now, in 2012, if we recall, the nation witnessed a very devastating flood, and this was repeated in 2022, another worst flooding in Nigeria. Now, in 2013, the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency began to publish its annual flood outlook. This annual flood outlook gives a detailed scenario of flooding that is expected to happen in the country, the magnitude of this flooding, the time it is expected to occur, and the locations it is expected to occur. Now, NISA, in preparation of its forecast, utilizes different models. For now, we integrate 3 models in our flood forecasting, and we use different set of data from different sources which range from rainfall, water level, river flow, digital elevation model, land use, land cover, satellite imageries, and so on. So with this set of information, NISA used 3 sets of models in its prediction. Now, apart from this annual flood outlook, the report we have just seen now signifies NISA's weekly flood notification, because we are in the peak period of rainy season, and most of the country is experiencing riverine flooding, flash flooding, and urban flooding. This weekly flood notification gives the alert number, the alert level, the date of issue of this alert, the forecast period, and the risk river that is causing this flooding, as well as the various roads that are going to be impacted by this flooding, as well as gives its recommendation to the various emergency management agencies on their preparedness for emergency response protocols, as well as those communities that are vulnerable to flooding that has already been predicted, to be ready for evacuation when the need arises. And then to urge Nigerians to update themselves with the weekly flood scenario that can be obtained from the Nigeria Hydrological Services flood dashboard, its website, and from Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, on Instagram or Facebook, and
Yes.
television or radio at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, so how do you use the local communities to raise awareness on the flood alerts?
Yes. We are supposed to embark on aggressive sensitization campaign awareness across some of these communities that we have already predicted to suffer very high level of flooding within the limit of its resources. Now, in the first forecast that we gave in April this year, the highlight of that forecast stated that about 1,249 communities in 176 local governments in 30 states plus FCT falls within the high flood risk areas. Now, these communities are many, and NISA, within the limit of its resources, is trying to embark on comprehensive sensitization campaign awareness to some of these communities, to sensitize them on the dangers of flooding, as well as the mitigation measures they are expected to take, so that the impact of flooding on them, their property, their lives, and things like that can be minimized.
And be protected, actually.
Yes.
Thank you so much for laying the foundation for this conversation. We all know that climate change is shifting rainfall patterns and increasing storm intensity. Now, let me bring in Mr. Kunle Awajemila into this conversation. How much of a factor is this, in recent flood events in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Because of climate change, the variability in the parameters have become very, very unpredictable. So, and because of that, at the Federal Ministry of Environment, through the National Flood Early Warning Center, we have gone as far as breaking it down into every 3 days, because sometimes we might even predict within 2 days, and you have those parameters changing. So because of that, we give 3 days alert every 3 days, and these alerts are sent to a platform where we have all the state commissioners of environment, all the controllers of environment, and then from there they are expected to cascade this to the local governments, and then from the local governments to those places where those flooding are expected to occur. I'll give you an instance of the Yola flood that just occurred, and because we were able to give her that alert early enough, just the alert was given a day, the second day the flooding occurred. And because we realized that climate change has made doing a long prediction become very unstable and unreliable. So we have do alerts almost every 3 days, and within that system too, the possibility of even the communities, the commissioners checking every 3 hours, every day, if they are going to be a flooding within their location, for about 400 locations in the country, in the different parts of the country.
400 locations
Over
across
400
Nigeria.
locations.
Over 400 locations across Nigeria. Okay, from block drainages to construction of floodplains, cities seem to worsen the flood disaster by blocking these passages. So what are the key urban planning failures contributing to this problem? Let's bring in Mr. Kana into this conversation.
Thank you very much for having me. So you have introduced me as the MD or General Manager of a State Water Corporation. We as State Water Corporation, our mandate is to manage the waters within the state, because water does not belong to the state. It's what we call transboundary. Like where I come from, Nasarawa, which is adjacent to joining the FCT, most of the water that passes through Nasarawa, some comes from even the FCT, passes through River Uke, River Kurape, then it moves to River Uke, which most of us here are aware of that, and it passes through Nasarawa. That's one of the drainage systems we have in the state. And from there, it now empties into the River Benue before Lokoja, and then before Umashab, then empties to Lokoja. Now that's one of the drainage systems we have. We have one of the drainage systems that comes from Plateau and Kaduna State, through the Plateau escarpment. It comes through what we call the Mada Corridor, which we have a waterworks there. And from there, it drains down to other rivers like River Oina in Doma, and then finally empties into River Benue again after Makodi around Rokobi. That's why some of those key areas where I'm mentioning are areas that the Director Erosion Control is aware of those areas. Those are areas that are put in their early warnings, because we have about 3 major drainage systems within the state. Then the last but not the least is the one that comes from the Plateau escarpment that drains into the popular Forenroa Falls. Then the dam that was created by the state government and handed over to the federal government of Nigeria in Mangar, which is called the Forenroa Dam, for hydropower, for agricultural activity, and then water supply. Finally, it moves down and then connects with some other rivers from other parts of Plateau, like Shemankar, and then form the Jangwa corridor, which finally empty River Benue before Mukurdi now. That's around the Dangote sugar in Tonga. So now, what is our work as a state water agency? We are working closely, apart from our mandate of provision of water supply, quality water, work closely with the Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency, which we are like their foot soldiers. Because if you look at the Land Use Act, lands belong to the state. So the rivers that are within the state is managed by the state, which I'm the chief manager of that particular corridor there. Now, water does not stand alone. We are integral part of the hydrological area 4. Because in flood management and the water supply, you have to look at the catchment. Where is the source of this water? Because what happens up in terms of quantity, in some abstraction, happens to us down. So now what are we doing in relation to the subject matter today, issue of flooding? Now you have excess water like the climate change he mentioned. Plateau State, for instance, is a plateau, is a highland with flat surfaces, with waters, with the rainfall pattern over 2,000 millimeters higher. Now this water comes down. Now, are we prepared for that? What are the kind of structures we are supposed to put in place? My colleague, Mr. Jabo, is aware from the 2012 gauge of Lokoja, which was about 12.8, and then 2022 of about 13.2. Now, what have we done within this period? And then you look at it to go into the issue of National Water Bill, and the committee that was set up by Buhari administration, where Suleiman Adamu was the Honorable Minister. If you could recall that time, there was a committee that was set up by one of our senior colleagues, Professor Adanu, who was then the Executive Director of National Water Institute. Now, in that report clearly spelled out, there are some certain schedules that are supposed to be handled by the federal government of Nigeria on the major rivers. There are those that are supposed to be handled by the states. Now, we as a state, what are we doing as Nasarawa? These major drainage systems we have identified, we are trying to construct some sort of coffer dam to reduce the amount of flow of water to drain finally into the river Benue. Now, because we are all under the Benue corridor. Yes. Now, it's expected that other states that are along the Niger are supposed to do, and other states along that particular river. The question now is that the advocacy has been very poor. There has not been proper inter-agency collaboration and interministerial. Now, for instance, the director in the Ministry of Environment has been issuing alerts to the State Ministry of Environment. In the state, we don't work with the Ministry of Environment. What is normal?
Why?
So now, like during the annual flood outlook, for instance, you will discover that a lot of State Ministry of Environment are not participating. More or less State Ministry of Water Resources. When NIMET are doing the seasonal climate prediction in January, which we all participated here, there has been that particular gap, and that's why I have brought this argument severally that how early is the early warning? Now you have put in early warning in Rukubi, where the Holland farm is. You are putting early warning around, for instance, around Tunga. You are putting early warning around Umasha. Now, I have a dam upstream, which I'm the water manager. You are not interfacing with me. So if you put in early warning, how early warning is the early warning? So these are the areas where a program like this will now bring advocacy, a sort of advocacy, so that we, as even a lot of state water agencies, are not even aware that their mandate is also for flood mitigation. Because even if you provide water for drinking, you are supposed to, even the tariff is supposed to include the runoff. These are different models. If you look at the models in Europe, some model, Netherlands model, Europe, American model, and the rest. The water tariff is supposed to be inclusive of the runoff, because runoff finally goes into the river which you manage. So these are some of the advocacy we do, even in our conferences, even in the National Council of Water Resources. We have presented several action memos. Now implementation is on the offering. Like the National Water Council we presented in Uyo recently. It's National State presented about 3 action memos, and even some of the previous action memos presented here. The implementation has always been very poor. Is it due to negligence, or due to passage of funds, or no political will, or even ignorance? These are some of the issues that, as soon as we start doing that, most of this quagmire is going to be nipped to the bud. So these are some of the issues. Now, there are some certain deliberate efforts by the federal government of Nigeria using World Bank Fund. The popular AgriSal program, the Africa program, is ongoing as we speak. You have even the sustainable power irrigation in Nigeria, which is also ongoing. In those like the AgriSal, they have now tried to see how the 8 hydrological areas we have in Nigeria, which my director here will allude to that, about 8 of them. Now, we are doing, even within the AgriSal, doing to study micro drainage systems. That's minor catchments, so that we have micro informations. Now, just like how micro information is like up to like the federal, state, and then up to local government level, so that each layer will be able to play its own role. And now, there are positives to that. Now, my prof is here, who is an agriculturist. If you retain most of this water, His people are going to use it during the dry season. So these are some of the positives, which if we have interagency collaboration, which we are doing in Nasarawa State now. Since I came on board as a general manager of the State Water Agency, with the knowledge we have acquired interfacing with the nation and the international space, we have brought these ministries, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Water Resources, and then the State Water Agency, because my director in the state level, ministry does not manage the river. It is the water corporation. That's why if you go back to the background report, which was talking about the Alo Dam. Yeah. Now, what the Alo Dam is meant for what? My prof is from Maiduguri.
I am from Maiduguri.
You're also from Maiduguri. If the Alo Dam is under who? It's supposed to be within the MD of the water corporation. The water is being used by that. So we are supposed to have Department of the Dam, which are supposed to have some certain gadgets. They are supposed to be monitoring the water. Even look at the dam axis. You use some certain technology like the GPR. You look at whether there are cracks or there are fault zones that are happening after the construction, so that you can imbibe issue of preventive flood and preventive of collapsing. Like what is happening now, like Alo Dam. Alo Dam has failed last year. Now, what have you achieved between last year is more or less rhetoric. If you go there now physically, we are in a live television program. You discover that we are still on the same space. Now, the next thing is, it also reoccurs now. Then we'll start running to Maiduguri, then going there to support.
Yes, I was reading somewhere that the contract has been awarded for the repair of the Alo Dam. I need to pause you there, because what you're indicating now is every year we sit down to talk about this flood disaster, and it requires multi-faceted approach. Now, how can we achieve better coordination between agencies like NEMA, NIMET, and urban planners? Let me come to Air Commodore Kenneth into the conversation.
Okay, good evening again, Jumai, and good evening, Nigerians. Before I go ahead, before I dive into the conversation, I want to, on behalf of my DG, Mrs. Zubaida Umar, I want to extend our heartfelt condolences and sympathy to families, communities across states in Nigeria who have been devastated by the effects of flood. And I want to assure these communities that the federal government of Nigeria, under the leadership of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, through my Director General, Mrs. Zubaida Umar, will continue to do our best to ensure that the situation is brought under control and the communities go back to their normal means of livelihood. Now, having said that, as Mr. Stephen has I highlighted earlier on, once NEMA receives the annual flood outlook from them, immediately the Department of Disaster Risk Reduction in the National Emergency Management Agency immediately goes into action by sending its members across all the communities that have been identified as flood-prone communities across the country. We try to enlighten these communities, telling them the dangers of flood, telling them the dangers of them habiting where they are habiting. In most cases, we prefer that the state governments, where these communities are, should relocate some of these communities. I give an example. I responded to the flood disaster in Mokwa. Yes, I was there live.
Tell us the experience there.
Yes, I was there live, and it was very sympathetic, to say the least. Just before that flood incident occurred, the Department of Disaster Risk Reduction had actually been in Mokwa, telling these people on the dangers of living in floodplains. They enlightened them, told them to move to higher grounds. We engaged with the state government, telling them the dangers of this community. Unfortunately, nothing was done. Now, we even had contact with some, elders in the community who informed us that before that flood incident occurred, before the current chief, the Sarkin Hausawa before he became the chief, that the previous chief of that community never allowed anybody to build on those floodplains. But immediately that chief passed on, the community had passed on, and the subsequent ones, continued to allow. People kept on building, houses were springing up, no urban control, no development control, until that incident occurred. It was a very bad one, and it's not, to say the least, it's not what you wish for any community. So we just wish that the state governments will do what they are supposed to do, relocate people away from floodplains. In areas where you cannot relocate them, there is what you call desilting or dredging. We visited, we apart from going around to sensitize the public, My department, under the Department of Search and Rescue, we go as far as conducting, simulation exercises with these communities. If you cannot leave, when the flood comes in, what are you expected to do? Most people don't even know this, And unfortunately, in some states, except for few states like Lagos states that have a properly constituted state emergency management agency, most states do not have. I can tell you this. Most states do not have. Because like my DG will always say, every disaster is local. It starts from somewhere. I give an example. If, as we are in this studio, if a disaster strikes, the best person that is in position to help me is one of you here. Unlike, you can't be calling on somebody who's far away. You can't call on my wife. You can't call on anybody. You have to try to resuscitate me before you can call, on any outside body to come in and also help. That is what we encourage all states to do. They should properly set up the state emergency management agencies, including local emergency management committees, who will start the response efforts. Once it outweighs them, the state emergency will come in. Once it outweighs the state, of course, before the federal, we prefer this bottom-top approach by every state. But unfortunately, that is not the case.
But why is there no synergy between SEMA and NEMA? What is the problem on ground?
The problem on ground is just, the turnover of politicians. In some states, recently, I want to commend some states that are doing quite well. Like Katsina State, they are doing very well. You can't go and force a state governor to put in place a SEMA. For instance, recently we were in the sole administrator of Rivers State, Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibaz, probably because of his military background, took up the responsibility to properly establish, a properly constituted state emergency management agency. And he invited us, to Rivers State, where we went. We had already set up a flood committee, whom we interacted with. We visited various, communities, like in Ahoda West. We visited Okaki community in Ahoda West. We visited Iwofe community in Obiakpo local government, and a lot of other communities. And when we interacted with that flood committee that they set up, of course, we identified some gaps. There are some critical agencies or critical stakeholders that must be, part of a flood committee. So we're able to, raise these observations to the states, and of course, we are still waiting to hear from them so that we can go back there and, conduct a simulation exercise with them. We have conducted simulation exercises in Anambra. We have conducted simulation exercises also in Kano. What we are advocating is that every state, and if I may just say this, the NEMA Act, Act number 12 of 1999, amended by Act number 50 of 1999, clearly states that there shall be a national emergency management agency saddled with the responsibility of managing emergencies within Nigeria. Same Act states that NEMA shall formulate policies that will enable it manage its emergencies. Same Act also stated that NEMA will work with stakeholders, meaning variously the Armed Forces of Nigeria, the Federal Road Safety Corps, the police, and all that. The same Act provided for the establishment of state emergency management agencies in every state of the Federation, including local emergency management committees. But as we speak, you can count the number of states that have these structures on ground. You cannot start constituting an emergency management committee when you are in an emergency. Unfortunately, that's what we find. In most states, once any disaster strikes, they are calling on NEMA. Instead of them to have a properly constituted, emergency management committee on ground, they do not have. So these are the issues. This is what my DG continues to advocate for. She has attended various Federal Executive Council meetings where she has brought up this issue. Of course, it's at the discretion of the state governments. So this is where we are till now. Those states that are interested, of course, like Rivers, we are working with them, the sole administrator there, to ensure that they have a properly constituted state emergency management commission. And until every state do that, we are likely to continue to face this problem as as my colleague has highlighted.
It's quite alarming that all the 36 states, including Abuja, some of them are not on board with the predictions and working together to ensure that it does not continue to happen. Let's bring in Professor Abagambo. Professor Abagambo, we know flood disaster, affects farmlands and farmers across the country. How will that, in your own opinion, affect food security in Nigeria?
Good evening, viewers, and Jumai, thank you for having me again. Now, let's go a little bit academic. Flood actually means excess water in a naturally dry land. So when you're talking of flood, it means excess water in any dry land. But then when you're talking about the causes, I think the number one thing that we should consider are the trees. If you have more trees, there will be less flooding. And if you have less trees, there will be more flooding. In most cases, you see that when the flood overcomes everybody, you see people clinging to trees, telling you that the trees are actually kind of life saviors. Then, and secondly, and most importantly, agriculturally, the trees have a kind of physiological ability to absorb all the water in a particular environment. But if the trees are not there, and the water keeps flowing, then definitely you're going to have a flood. And over the years, the major casualties to flooding in Nigeria are the farmlands and the farmers and their families. It might happen in the night, and then you don't have the ability to go and remove whatever that is on your farm, even if it is time of harvest. Instead, you'll be thinking of evacuating your family and whatever you can pick in your house to a safer place. But then by the time you see the magnitude of farmlands that are being destroyed, especially in those flood-prone areas like Kebbi, Kogi, then Benue, Adamawa, etc. And coincidentally, all the flood areas are the major food-producing areas for this country. Like rice, for example, Kebbi is the #1 producer of rice, and Yawuri in Kebbi State produces about 3 seasons of rice. But then, the kind of things that are happening, I read the Nigerian Meteorological Agency report, their forecast for this year, and they mentioned about 27 states with plenty of local governments. What actually surprised me is they mentioned Borno, and they mentioned Gubbio local government. Gubbio local government is at the most northern part of Borno State, and they have less than 3 months of rainfall per annum. 3 months, less than 3 months. All agricultural activities must start and finish within the 3 months. Now, Gubbio is expecting flood this year. So you can see there is a kind of, it's not like where you have rivers, no. Or where you have plenty of coastal areas. No, beyond that. And then we're talking about food security. We're asking the farmers to go back to the farms, give them all the necessary incentives, the hybrid seeds, the fertilizers and everything. But then if at the end of the day, water will come and flood everything out. I think most of the crops we consume, the only two that can stand water flooding for more than 1 week is sorghum and rice. But every other crop cannot have the ability to survive flood or submergence with water for more than 2 weeks, 1 week. Definitely. There is this photosynthesis that goes in, you need the carbon dioxide from, and then you fix and the atmospheric, and then you need the sunlight, etc. So by the time you put them underwater completely, they would all just die off. And then still talking about the food security, the flood system has to come into view from the agricultural aspect. These 3 days alert, this 1 week alert or 2 weeks alert, we should go beyond that, honestly. Like in Maiduguri, nobody gave us any alert that Alo Dam is going to flow tomorrow. But then we just woke up, it started in the night. You understand? And then so many things happened. All the croplands from Alo up to
Jere, Kondega, etc., all of them were submerged. And these are areas that are major food producing areas in Borno State. So it came in the night. Who will go and salvage whatever? No. You just think of moving with your family. So agriculturally, if the floods warnings are not constant and then should be translated into local languages, because you always have everything in English being fished out. What of the localities, the communities that we are talking about? So there has to be a kind of translator that will give those messages in that particular local language. Every state has a radio station. Every state has a television station. So translate the language into the languages of that particular environment so that you can give them enough warning. Some crops can be salvaged if warning is good enough. But then in a situation whereby you give 2 days warning and you say the flood is going to overtake this particular environment, are you going to salvage your family and your properties in the house? Or are you going to your in-laws' place to make sure that they are also safe? Or are you going to go to the farm to make sure that all your crops are saved? So it's a very dicey situation. And I think as a government, the federal government and the states, I think we have to be more proactive, sincerely. We have to be more proactive. Most of these things can actually be controlled. And plenty of the issues with flooding are man-made. Apart from climate change, another major reason is man-made. You see people planting where water is passing. You see people building where everybody knows it's a waterway, and then you expect that the water, when it comes, it will change channel. Water doesn't change its channel. So
the water will always find its way.
It must find its way,
yes.
definitely. So whether it's a farmland full of rice or whatever, or whether it's a house or whatever, it will just crush it and then keep moving. And you know the force of water, actually. It's so forceful. Water has plenty of force within it.
Indeed, water has plenty of force. We saw what happened in Moka and Borno State. You know, Borno State, although it was a dam, but Moka, you begin to wonder, you know, when these things happen, how do these people survive? And let me come back to Mr. Jabu. You know, how do we have systems in place? Like Professor Abagambo is saying,
yes,
to alert farmers, you know what needs to be done during flood seasons like now.
Thank you very much. You know, we can put mitigation measures in place, and these mitigation strategies are measures that could be put in place to reduce or eliminate the negative impact of flooding on communities, infrastructure, and ecosystem. The loss of lives, the loss of livelihood, the damage to infrastructure like road, bridges, farmlands, houses, and the ecosystem. Now, mitigation measures are combinations of both structural and non-structural measures that can be taken to holistically mitigate the impact of flooding. What are these non-structural measures? The non-structural measures are sustained flood forecasting and early warning. People are expected to adhere to those advices that are given to these warnings that are given out by respective agencies. Now, education and enlightenment of communities on the dangers of flooding. Now, people should first of all assess their vulnerability to flooding. And it's not difficult to know if you are vulnerable to flooding. For instance, your house or your business is located in floodplain, waterways, riverbanks, or low-lying areas. These are areas that are vulnerable to flooding. So you already know that where you want to farm, or where you want to build a house, or where you want to conduct your business, is already vulnerable to flooding. So what we expect is that people must first of all assess their level of vulnerability to flooding by the virtue of the fact that where do they stay, where do they live, where do they conduct their businesses, where do they spend most of their time? Is it vulnerable to flooding? Now, issue of continuous sensitization and campaign awareness to those communities that are already vulnerable to flooding. Now, other structural measures that could be taken is, for instance, construction of dams and reservoirs on our various rivers. Nigeria have so many network of rivers. Majorly, the biggest two rivers, rivers Niger and Benue, they are the two transboundary rivers. And particularly River Benue has a lot of tributaries that are generated within Nigeria and carries a lot of water during this period of the year, especially July, August, and September. Now, apart from building dams and reservoirs, we can also desilt these rivers and the dams so that their water carrying capacity and storage could be enhanced. Apart from that, we could also build detention or retention ponds to control storm waters that could be used during the dry season. Then we come to the issue of levees and flood walls and embankment so that it will curtail the inundation of land from flood waters. Then you come to the issue of construction of drainage systems. Now, you see that most of the floodings that we're witnessing are that these communities are built where there are no virtually enough drainage systems or they are non-existent. Now, even where they are built, because of our poor waste disposal habit, those drainage systems are blocked and people don't even care to even clear them, knowing very well that when rain comes like this and during this heavy rainy season, water passage is blocked. And what do you expect? You expect flooding. So we expect people to, first of all, make sure that they clear their gutters, drainage systems are clean so that when water comes, they pass freely. Now, issue of afforestation, like Prof has just said, we need to plant trees and grasses around our environment because this has an impact on rainfall, runoff, and flood waters. Now, if we have trees and grasses around our environment, this will break the force of runoff on the surface and then increase percolation of water into the ground, thereby reducing flooding. So this combination of both structural and non-structural measures could be taken. Now take, for instance, if an area is low-lying and is so difficult to maybe do some kind of structural measure, the solution is that we can relocate this community entirely to highland, areas that are not vulnerable to flooding. They should be relocated completely. Because when an area is low-lying, it's so difficult to control flooding. It's so difficult to say you want to put structural measures.
But relocation has always been an issue. People don't want to leave the floodplains because they feel this is their ancestral home and they don't want to move from there. They also say that they are like fish to water. They know how to swim.
Yes, the reason why people don't want to leave floodplains are that the floodplains are very rich in nutrients. And you find out that they sustain a lot of agricultural activities because the land are very fertile. When flood waters overflow the floodplains, they deposit soils that are rich in nutrient, and plant thrives very well. So people use these floodplains to grow different types of crops, and the yield is so high that people will now want to leave these floodplains. Equally, the floodplains, people engage in various economic activities. So it will be difficult for people to leave these floodplains because they look at the means of their livelihood, and should they leave it, what is going to sustain their life?
It's a familiar place. I have to pause you there. We have some reports that will push this conversation further. Let's take this report from Kepi.
Last year, Kebbi State was badly hit by the disaster, with over 54,000 households across 18 local government areas affected out of 21, displacing hundreds of individuals and causing widespread devastation. The state agricultural sector, a vital source of livelihood for its residents, suffered severe losses, with over 800,000 hectares of farmland washed away, including crops such as rice, millet, and guinea corn.
Farmers like us have farms in the lower area, and already water is beginning to submerge the farms. We cannot do anything but wait and see what God will do. The devastation experienced cannot be quantified. Our farms, our homes, we pray for such disaster to never happen.
So when NIMET flood flash list did not include Kebbi State, but include neighboring Sokoto, Zamfara and Niger State, stakeholders knew there is no way the flood won't wash through Kebbi.
Flooding comes to us every time, but most people are not aware. And when we create the awareness, then we develop our strategies that will help us plan, early planning, before the flooding comes.
So, in preparation to mitigate the disaster, the state government has established a 16-member committee whose primary objective is to assess the situation, identify areas of need, and develop a comprehensive flood response strategy.
We have constituted a team that will sensitize our people that are in the flash-point areas, so that where we feel we should relocate our people, we have to do that.
Apart from Kebbi State government, agencies like NEMA and the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs are stepping up efforts to mitigate the impact of flooding.
In Kebbi State right now, we collaborated with the UNICEF to have program 3 days for all the DEX officers in the local governments, high-prone local governments.
Despite these efforts, concerns still linger about the magnitude and reoccurring pattern of such disaster, which requires a holistic approach to reduce the devastation to the barest minimum when it happens. In Birnin Kebbi, Usman Abdullah Shehu.
Our next report is from Lagos.
During the heavy rainfall, challenges such as rising sea level, surface water flooding, river floods due to water released from dams rear ugly heads. Aggravating the situation is indiscriminate dumping of refuse, mostly styrofoam and other single-use plastics, high population density, and building on wetlands. For environmentalists, some of these mentioned challenges can be tackled with intentional policies and programs and needed awareness.
Lagos, for instance, knows that it has no choice. Floods will continue to hit Lagos hard every year. The magnitude may differ from year to year. So what adaptation do they want? Get ready and devise means by which you can reduce the impact.
Lagos State has been taking steps since 2010 by intensifying efforts to check physical development in many areas prone to flooding and wetlands. In 2019, Lagos State's Resilience Office and Sustainable Action Plan was launched to develop a city resilience strategy, flood support, and risk management.
Lagos is a coastal state that is below sea level. As a coastal state that is below sea level, climate challenges, we are exposed to 3 of them. Sea level rise, excessive heat, and excessive rainfall. When there is sea level rise and excessive rainfall, you have a lockup. Lockup means there is your storm water cannot discharge into the outlet of the lagoon or the Atlantic. So that's why you have flash flooding.
Despite this, Lagos State government is intensifying efforts to improve infrastructure that can help address floods, community engagement, and sensitization. The state's strategies also include topography mapping and resettlement schemes.
Also taking the bull by the horn by ensuring that people are not built on the right of way for the water, for the storm water or the stream. We've seen people say, oh, we are removing those contraventions because the law allows us to remove them.
Authorities in Lagos say private sector support in mitigating flood is minimal and inadequate.
And the role of the private sector will not be to financialize the crisis or in terms of benefits, but instead, their interventions, which will be in financial support, the interventions which will be in bringing expertise where government is lacking, could be part of their own corporate social responsibility.
For Lagos State government, constant community engagement remains key to changing negative attitudinal disposition to the environment and enlightening Lagos residents about climate change and its impact. In Lagos, Lanre Bileyi.
And the program will continue right after this break.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
You're watching Tuesday Live, and the focus today is on flood prediction challenges and mitigation strategies. At a point in time now, the phone lines will be open for our viewers to contribute to this conversation. Bring on your questions, and our guests here in the studio will be able to respond to them. Let me now return to Mr. Kunle. You know, let's talk about policies. Nothing can happen without policies, and most of these policies usually comes from the Ministry of Environment. So are there national or subnational environmental policies, especially, in areas like this, addressing the flood resilience across states in Nigeria? What are the policies?
Thank you very much. We have what we call the National Erosion and Flood Control Policy, which is currently under review. It was first made in 2005. It covers flood management, and it describes what to be done, the roles of every stakeholder in the flood milieu. And apart from that, currently the Ministry of Environment is developing the National Flood Insurance Policy and implementation framework. The Lagos State government has started something, and a couple of other organizations. But the Ministry of Environment looked at it that it is better we have a holistic approach to this problem rather than having them in piecemeal. What does this National Flood Insurance Policy, what does it do? It helps to dissuade settlement in those floodplains that we have been talking about all this while. It gives premiums to be paid for any resident within those floodplain. And then it moves people away from the floodplain. After moving people away from the floodplain, then the floodplains are now categorized to different uses. We've talked about the flood water bringing in soils, that's rich alluvial soils. So with the National Flood Insurance policy in place, we hope to be able to stop people from staying there. If you are going to stay there, it means you are going to pay a very high premium. And if you are going to pay a very high premium, it definitely moves you away from the floodplain. Then it's going to be implemented at different levels. From the federal government, the state implementation unit, then we have the local government implementation unit.
But implementation has always been a problem in, implementing policies in Nigeria. So how are you getting it done?
Good. Let's take the National Erosion and Flood Control Policy, NEFCOP, for instance. You'll find out that different programs of the Federal Ministry of Environment, we've been able to achieve quite a lot. We have in different parts of the country, we have drainages being constructed, flood water harvesting structures being constructed. Then through the agro-climatic resilient in semi-arid areas, that's the ACRISA, you have a flood control project like the one in Jibia. Then Nguru wetlands has been rehabilitated. With the rehabilitation of Nguru wetland, you'll find out that that place serves as a sponge for flood water. So the water comes in, the runoff comes in, it stays there for some time. But when it stays there for some time, then it can now move. Then the policy again equally dictates what should be done in different floodplain. You have cities being called sponge cities. And when you construct sponge cities in cities, what you have is you have woodlots, you have parks. Within those parks, you create artificial ponds to suck in the water from the environment. Then the drains that you are constructing, you construct them, have silt catchers with it. So by the time those flood water comes in, you harvest them. You harvest those flood water, and then you are able to use it during the dry season for farmers and all that. So the policy equally, that's the National Erosion and Flood Control Policy, equally stipulates the establishment of the National Flood Insurance Policy. It stipulates what structures to be done. It stipulates what each state is expected to be done. And from that, you are able to curtail this flood. Although you can't do everything because of the paucity of funds. So if funds are available, then we might be able to do more. Then awareness campaign. There's a need to be able to ramp up awareness campaign up to the grassroots. What do we do at the Federal Ministry of Environment? Early this year, we first gave what we call Flood Watch. With the Flood Watch for farmers, we've told you, okay, these places, you are not supposed to farm there. These places are going to be flooded. These messages are sent to the different state governments, because flood is something that is local. So because it is local, then you send it to the state sends to the local government, and to follow it up, we go ahead with the 5-day, 3-day flood early warning. Just like the Maiduguri you are seeing. There was a warning for Maiduguri. On 8th, I think, particularly, either 8th or 7th, before the flooding happened. So you have layers of warning that is given. Then the use of the single-use plastic, styrofoam, there is a policy on it already. Because you find out you take your bottled water, you throw it out of the vehicle, you take your pure water, you throw it out of the vehicle. Then there are policies on solid waste management. And these are being tackled. State governments are being told to make sure that they drive this policy, they implement them. Then turning some of this waste that is causing problem into wealth. You find the Ministry of Environment implementing the circular economy. With the circular economy, you have women being engaged as waste pickers, they pick these waste, they are sent to, for instance, we have one in Edu here, a factory in Edu here, where those wastes are picked, they are sent to those places, they are turned into pellets, and then they are reused. So you can't say those policies are not working. You can't say those policies are not being implemented. You can be talking about the level of implementation and then getting subnationals, because everything is local.
Yes.
We make the policy in connection with other stakeholders, the three tiers of government, but implementation, we can't stay here in Abuja and implement for everybody. The state, we give example by some of these things we have done. Those things are just examples. So the state governments, the local governments are to take a cue from this.
Now that they have autonomy and they have the money.
And they have the money.
Okay.
Mr.
Mr. Kana, you know, every time we have this conversation, it all boils down to the states and how they implement flood policies. That brings to mind the ecological fund. How do states manage ecological funds? Why do they always run to the federal government when it happens in their state? What is the money meant for and how is it being used?
Yes, I think the narrative is being changed now with the present administration of President Tinubu, which with transparency and the open door policy. Since I'm coming from the state, I should be able to speak on the case study of Nasarawa. Nasarawa, for instance, in the three level of type of flooding we have, which Mr. Jabo has presented, issue of urban flooding is bye-bye in Lafia today, because we had a former governor, Senator Almakura, when he was there. He did a study. We were also part of the study for 8 good years. We studied the rain pattern and the entire micro drainage system of Lafia. We have big drainage systems in Lafia. Some are even underground. If you are going to Makodi, we have some underground systems. They are finally empty onto the river Amba. So that's why today, issue of river urban flood, issue of flash flood, we don't have it again in Lafia. And all these waters within Lafia, as a case study, empties into the river Amba. And we are able to desilt the river Amba in 2017, which we are able to achieve about 4 things. First is the flood. Secondly, issue of ecological aspect, that's fisheries was enhanced. Issue of the water quality was also increased. Issue water quality and water quantity, because we have a lot of space in that place. But unfortunately, certain aspect was not implemented, which river resilted. As we speak, His Excellency Engineer A.S. Field and General Society of Engineers, the Executive Governor of State, has just given an approval for the dredging of the river Amba, so as to be able to leverage on this kind of opportunity. Now, going back to the river administration, with the President Minister of Water Resources, President Tinubu has also awarded draining construction of a new dam for Lafia. And where are we constructing it? We are constructing downstream of Lafia, where all the micro catchments of Lafia drain down into Lafia. Now, it leads to one of the issue of community issue, not wanting to move away. That area is what we call limnology, wetlands, where you have a lot of agricultural activities taking place, both rainy and dry season, and the positives of the nutrients that comes out. Now, the construction that has been given, design has been done by the ministry. They came down. The state governor set up an interministerial committee, Minister of Water Resources, Water Board, Environment, Lands, and then even the Emir of Lafia set up even 2 ranking chiefs were all part of the committee. Now, this is a case study. We went to that particular committee where this dam is supposed to be constructed for 3 purposes. Number 1 is for water supply. Number 2 for agriculture. Number 3, possibly, if the empowerment is much, it can even turn a small turbine so that it can also, with the approval of the federal government, so that state government can also generate electricity, we can be able to. But now this issue came up now. The community are not willing to move away. And the reason they are giving is that, yes, they are willing to move away. And Mr. Jabo is aware of the issue of white houses and then black houses. You could have 2 houses, 1 house for rainy season, 1 house for, that's what we call white house, and then the black houses. Then we have model of issue of black flood and then the white flood. That's to say, some drainage system is such that there are some certain areas that water does not start early. Some comes much later. So you could have 2 types of flooding. All these models has been done by Nigerian Hydrological Services in conjunction with the state water agencies, River Basin Development Authority, and the Federal Ministry of Water Resources. Now the question now is they have brought now is that they are willing to move. But this some community, depending on even the religion again, some of them, some of the, I'm not trying to bring issue of religion now, per se, but some of the most Christian community along those areas, they are saying their graves are there of their grandfather. how can they leave their grandparents? Then there are models of issue of translocation, of exhuming, so that you can now move it away to your permanent, fairly White House, so that you can now put it there. These are different models you can encourage. As we speak, it's a very big study, a case study now in Nasarawa. In the ministerial committee set up, Emir of Life has set up a committee. Consultant has finished their work. They have brought all their drawings who have met. These are the area you are supposed to move to 50 meters away or 100 meters away from here. How do you convince such communities? So these are areas where you could be able to have tactics, the kind of people that will go and talk to them. Now, apart from that, we as a state government, we are being in collaboration with Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency. Now, when the last DG, the Engineer Easy was there, we were able to have that collaboration. He was able to install staff gauges in about 10 to 12 rivers in the state. Staff gauges are something like ruler, like that, because in the state agency, in one of the National Council of Water Resources we did in Sokoto some years back, we presented an action memo that each state water agency should be able to have hydrology and hydrogeology department, which Nasarawa was the first state to have set up that. As we speak, His Excellency Engineer A. Sule is providing funding to the Water Corporation so that our staff in those areas, and even we use some essential workers in the Ministry of Agriculture that are knowledgeable, so that we mustn't have our staff, so that once it is 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours of the day, they now take all those things. We give them sort of kind of stipends. This is what we are doing as a state. Apart from that, we are working closely with the Nigerian Meteorological Service Agency, NIMET. As we speak, we have some meteorological stations within even the Water Corporation in the state, which were even generating different hydrometeorological parameters as we speak. Finally, pushing to Abuja so that the more the merrier. Apart from that, Nigerian Hydrological Survey Agency has also drilled a groundwater monitoring well inside the Water Corporation, which is called what we call the stand-alone, which there are loggers that are there. These loggers are there, generate data on the rise and fall, so that we can be able to do issue of advisory. Now you talk about self-help. Most water corporation, or depending on the hydrological condition, you discover that certain part of the year you don't have much water again, so that the production has reduced. What do we do? Do like the power, the national power now. Everybody goes into the generator. People go into the borehole. Now, what are the number of borehole maximum that within an area can be able to carry? That is the essence of that particular advisory well that is there, which Mr. Jabo is aware is one of the credit we have to give it to them, which it is there, it's standing alone. Now they have even moved further in collaboration during the Numa project, World Bank project. They are able to attract, we're able to attract through them again, what we call telemetric system, which is in Nasarawa University in Geology Department. That particular system is there, the well is there, and then the equipment is there. As soon as you start abstracting, it's reading, and it says straight to Netherlands, real time, and then it serves as registry. Now, a case study has shown in an academic environment like Prof is here now, what happened was that you discover that in the mornings, that's the peak period in which students go for lectures. You discover that particular curve, the curve comes down, which means virtually all the wells are active. You discover that when students are in the classroom, the balls are no more active, the curve goes up. Can you now see some of the things we're doing? Yes. So now how can you replicate in all the areas? That's why the current DG of Nigerian Hydrological Survey Agency, coming from the political cloud, he has been hitting his door to National Assembly, working with even one of the areas that my prof is consulting, the Governors Forum. He has presented severally so that they can be able to understand this. They should be able to understand the necessary jargons so that they understand such kind of situation. So we as a state, we have been working closely in that respect, and we're getting results. This is what we're doing as well. Then apart from that again, the issue of agriculture you mentioned. Now, and then the present administration that has been talking about issue of diversification to food security and then mining. Now, mining activity, Joro, I talk about transboundary waters. A lot of activities are going in plateau in terms of mining activity. They have reopened their mining sites. Now, as they are reopening, now depending on the mining technique, if you are using open cast mining, you do a lot of removal of shrubs here and there. As you are removing shrubs, you have rainfall because of climate change, you have erosion. When you have erosion, you have transportation. When you have transportation, it goes to the river, now silting. Apart from when you have silted river, then you have now flooding. Or even the water quality is not deteriorating. As a state government now, we are spending a lot of money in terms of treatment. One of our case studies in Mada Water was we're using sometimes about 30 bags of alum per month.
I have to pause you here. We need to take a report from Enugu, and then when we return, you respond to other issues. We'll be right back.
Nigeria experiences frequent flooding, particularly during rainy season. Since 2012, when the nation had her worst-case scenario, many communities have continued to experience floodings over the years, with the attendant lamentations. Apart from natural factors worsened by global climate change, either by commission or omission, some human factors, according to experts, significantly worsen flooding in Nigeria. Key among these factors, they say, include non-compliance to urban planning guidelines, evident in the haphazard building practices in most urban centers and rural areas. Buildings on waterways and floodplains obstruct natural drainage paths.
Most times when there is rain, they will continue to pour the waste in the drainage system.
Other factors include lack of or improper drainage systems or poorly maintained ones, which results in waterlogging and flooding. Also, lack of effective waste management systems exacerbates the problem of flooding, just as deforestation and land degradation. According to the Enugu State Emergency Management Agency, the authorities are taking action against these human practices that are harmful to the environment.
We started radio jingles, sensitization programs. Most buildings that are built on the waterways, whether by license or not licensed, there may be some measure that we take in to make sure that water flows well to avoid loss of lives, property, and economy.
That lakes there in above, whenever it flows up, it causes flooding. But His Excellency have started working on it, deleting some places that used to cause all this flooding. And I believe this time around, Enugu State will be free from flooding.
To mitigate the impact of human factors causing floods in Nigeria, experts advise a multi-pronged approach, such as better urban planning and infrastructure, improved waste management system, enforcement of building regulations, and intensified public awareness campaign. Structural measures like flood control systems and reforestation efforts in critical areas are also crucial. Stakeholders say are also crucial in controlling incessant floods in Nigeria. In Enugu, Susan Eze.
Thank you, Susan Eze. I'm back in the studio, Air Commodore. Let's talk about the rescue missions. Usually in times like this, you find out that they have had to reach areas. We've had stories of not being able to reach along maybe the riverine areas like Bayelsa, Delta, and all that. How prepared are you, based on this year's prediction, how prepared are you to tackle these challenges?
Okay, thank you very much once again, Jumai. The National Emergency Management Agency, under the leadership of Mrs. Zubaida Omar, is very, very, very ready to tackle any form of emergencies, irrespective of the area these emergencies occur, either it's difficult or not. One of the means we use in tackling emergencies in difficult to access areas is through the activation of our disaster response units. The National Emergency Management Agency has the Armed Forces of Nigeria as, as a major stakeholder, and that's why, as the Director of Search and Rescue in NEMA, I am a member of the Armed Forces. The reason is simple. The members of the Armed Forces are easy to mobilize. We have equipments that can give us access to difficult to reach areas. I'll give you an instance. When the Mokwa flood disaster struck, while I was there, it was through the assistance of the Nigerian Air Force, under the leadership of the current Chief of Air Staff. Once we activated our disaster response unit in Kainji, they were able to give us an aircraft that went airborne, gave us live pictures of where we could not access on the ground. And we were able to use that to guide search and rescue teams to go and recover people that were trapped. Furthermore, the Nigerian Air Force has been assisting us, giving us airlifts of some of our staff to areas that are difficult to reach to perform their duties. Another stakeholder that helps is Nigerian Navy in Bayelsa. We have NNS Jubilee, and there are three naval units that we use as disaster response unit. One of them is in Bayelsa. So no matter the area, no matter how difficult, if we cannot reach there using, seaborne vessels like boats, we can reach there using the air through the Nigerian Air Force. The Nigerian Army, of course, also helps. I'll give you an instance. Presently, the flood that occurred in Yola South, local government of Adamawa State, our disaster response unit, the 153 base services group, and of course the 23 tank brigade in Yola, these disaster response units provided us with their logistics, provided us with manpower. We were able to set up IDP camps. We were able to set up mobile clinics. We were able to use their doctors, their nurses, providing medicines. And that's why you observe that, irrespective of the fact that there's flooding, the situation is calm. Even though you observe that once people are displaced, a lot of things go wrong. People are hungry, people are desperate, people are
sick.
They are sick. They've been cut off from their means of livelihood. But because NEMA, we anticipate, we act, and then we recover. So anticipatory actions involve us, giving early warning to communities. Action means once the disaster has struck, we activate our disaster response unit, and of course, another thing we do is we carry out what is known as active stockpiling. We identify locations that are going to be affected by flood. We preposition, disaster or relief materials in these locations, so that once the disaster strikes, we are able to easily, move the relief materials to these locations. Presently, I can assure you that Yola South, as a day before yesterday, was under water. But as we speak, that situation has been handled. People have been rescued. People are being attended to in IDP camps. Relief materials have been provided to victims. So far, the situation is calm. So NEMA
and the
works
Labdo Dam would be released very soon. The Labdo Dam.
Yes, you are correct. In fact, even the Alau Dam, as Prof was saying, we have our offices around the Federation. Before the Alau Dam, before the flooding from Alau Dam started, our NEMA staff from our Borno Operation Office, Meduguri Operation Office, sorry, they actually worked with the Lake Chad Basin Commission, and they were informed that yes, there was going to be gradual release of excess water from the Alau Dam. Now, what did we do? Immediately, our staff commenced the process of enlightening communities along the banks of these dams, to relocate, because it's difficult, there are some situations you cannot manage.
Especially when it happens.
Especially when it happens. Sometimes it happens at night. At night, if your house is flooded at night, what will you do? You can't even see, your immediate surroundings. Talk more of, acting or doing what. So these are some of the things that NEMA is doing to ensure that, we are able to mitigate these situations whenever they arise.
And sort of lessen the impact.
And
yes.
sort of lessen the impact.
The phone lines will be open now if you would like to contribute to this conversation. I have some tweets here now from Obasi, and I'm sure that Professor Gambo will be able to respond to that. He said, how can Nigerian universities and research institutions contribute more effectively to national flood management strategies? Professor Gambo.
Thank you very much. That's a good question, actually. And I actually want to say something about it. Now, talking about policy, most of the policies are developed in Abuja. And the people that are going to suffer the consequences of all the flood we're talking about are in rural communities. Now, when you say you want to do a public hearing, and then you said somebody from my native Borno should come to Abuja, maybe has never even been to Abuja before. So for him to come and talk about his immediate environment, most especially those people that are living along the Alau Dam, etc., they cannot come. So we want a situation, I'm begging, policymakers, please, why don't you go to the main areas and hear the voices of those people that are usually the victims? That's going to assist you in your policy formulation, and it will make implementation easier. Then secondly, before I answer his question, There are three things I saw during the Alo flood, Jumai, and honestly, it's so devastating and horrifying. One, the elephant from the Sandaki Arimi Zoo was seen on the street.
Yes, even the crocodile, I saw a video of that.
The crocodiles and the snakes were all out. And then a particular incident that somebody told me, when the flood water started in the night, the woman was pregnant. So as she saw the water coming up to her legs, there was a kind of induced delivery. So people were holding her. Then all of a sudden, she delivered into the water. While she bent down to pick the baby, the flood water took the baby and the mother with the umbilical cord and everything away. So we have to be very serious with what we are doing. Now to his question, the policymakers don't think about the universities, sincerely. And I'm speaking on behalf of all the state, federal, and private universities in this country. Research is supposed to be demand-driven. You come and ask us. We do plenty of researches. Go to our shelves. Every lecturer has plenty of researches, but then it's demand-driven. If you do not ask, you cannot get. So we want a situation whereby whatever policy that is being formulated, get the particular professor from another, or just as university staff, make sure that the university system, and then the research institutes, plenty of them, like under the Agricultural Research Council, there are about 17 different research institutes in all the facets of agriculture, root and tuber crops, oil palm, horticultural, etc. They are all there doing plenty of research. So you have to bring them in. And I want to thank Obasi all again for bringing this to the purview.
Yes.
If you do not call us, we cannot come. If you do not invite us, we don't get crashed. We're so comfortable in our campuses, and then we do our research with our students. And then, publication of research is the major guidance to our elevation in the university system.
Yes.
So you have to keep conducting researches, and then by the time you get your promotion, all the research findings are at the desk. So please, all the policy organs are with me here.
Yes.
Make sure the universities are part and parcel.
Okay.
And the research institutes of policy formulation.
We have a caller from Jos, Ultimate. Ultimate, you can go ahead. Please tone down the audio of your TV so that you can be audible. We can hear you. Go ahead. Hello, Ultimate.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Speaking to Honorable King, Ultimate from Jos. I want to say that the flooding of water is a natural thing that was made since creation. But I think what is happening is the wrong utilization of water for other use outside its natural purpose. You find out that there are distortions along waterways, especially made by human activities that are inimical to water-free flooding. If we can be able to establish rules and adhere to them and implement them adequately, I think all this water problem will be drastically reduced, if not brought under total control. Water can be adequately used if properly channeled for things like farming, power generation, transport, and then other forms of tourism. You could understand that we could also use it for our domestic and industrial purposes. Imagine when you go to part of the Middle East where it is a desert, they have been able to channel water even from the sea back into the land, and they are utilizing it for arable farming, which is so much of economic benefit. Now, I want to ask, when there is water flooding and it is causing a lot of havoc, are our agencies that are responsible for this rescue adequately equipped? I don't think they are adequately equipped, even though the Air Force and other things are trying. But I think we are under-equipped. So government should try and equip.
It says Ultimate is gone. The line is gone there. Thank you, Ultimate. I think you've made your point. And I have another tweet here that would align with what you're saying. Fikun Kolio So, said, how accurate are Nigeria's current flood prediction models and what tools of technology or technologies are being used? Mr. Stephen.
Well, the accuracy of our predictions depends on so many things. For instance, we look at the issue of data scarcity, data quality, climate change, community response to forecast and warning, an issue of investment in data collection, infrastructure, modern technology, modern modeling technology. So all of these are factors that really affect the accuracy of our prediction. For instance, you look at data scarcity. Data is so scattered and scarce in Nigeria when you talk of hydrometeorological data. Now, hydrological data collection started in 1914 in Nigeria under the Inland Waterways Department, which is now National Inland Waterways Authority. They established hydrological stations on rivers Niger and Benue. Then you talk of meteorological data was collected as far back as 1892 and then followed by the establishment of meteorological department in 1937. Now, the issue of data, hydrometeorological data is so scattered and that several agencies are involved in this data collection. Take, for instance, NEWA collects hydrological data for navigation or waterway transportation. You look at electricity generation companies, they collect their hydrological data for hydropower generation. You go to the river basin development authorities, they collect their data for management of water resources within their catchment. You come to NISA, NISA collects hydrological data for planning, design, and execution of water resources and allied projects. Now, by law, every agency that collects hydrological data, they are supposed to forward those information to the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency. It is the repository of hydrological data in Nigeria, irrespective of which organization is generating this data. Now you talk of data quality. Data quality, sometimes data can be incomplete, inconsistent, and there could be errors due to human measurement. And this could affect the accuracy of our modeling in terms of model calibration and evaluation. Now, you also look at climate change that is bringing so much changes in weather pattern, irregular rainfall patterns, flooding in some areas, and drought in some areas. All these factors affect the accuracy of our modeling. So, in a nutshell, NISA is trying to modernize its facilities in terms of the relevant softwares that are required for modeling and the hardware that we need to do that. And the issue is this, is not in the accuracy of our model, but when we do this forecast, what proactive actions did the people take so that they don't fall victim to flood consequences? We all know that flood has devastating impact on people's life. You see loss of life. Is it loss of livelihood? Is it displacement of people? Is it destruction of critical infrastructure? Is it issue of waterborne diseases because of flooding? So the issue is, we will be happy if people adhere strictly to our flood forecast warnings and take proactive measures so that the impact of flooding could be reduced or minimized to the barest minimum. So NISA is trying to say that most of our predictions are accurate, and we have been receiving reports from people that they used to validate using our annual flood outlook prediction to validate the accuracy of our predictions. And the report we are getting is that NISA's prediction are always valid and is very correct. So our joy will be that when we issue out this forecast every year and weekly notification of flooding, people adhere to it, take proactive measures so that there could be no more loss of lives, properties, displacement of people because of flooding. I think that will be our joy at the end of the day.
There's so much more to do along that. And Ifoma, let me take another tweet. Ifoma and 13595 said, and I'm going to Mr. Kunle with this question, what measures and safety are being taken to prevent or manage the predicted 2025 floods in Nigeria? Mr. Kunle.
Thank you very much. The measures that have been taken, we've talked about the flood watch that was first issued earlier in the year, around April. Then this followed by a series of early warning. Then we have what we call the NBS, nature-based solutions for flood management. These nature-based solutions, I've mentioned some of them, creation of sponge cities to be able to at least take in water and let it rest for a while. Then construction of drainages, construction of dikes, even as we go on now. So there are some constructions that are going on. And prior to this time, in the 2024 budget, quite a number of drainages have been constructed across the country, so that in envisaging that definitely this flood will come. So the ministry has constructed quite a number of them. Virtually every part of the country, these structures have been constructed. We have some flood-proofing structures like retaining walls, dikes, levees that are being constructed all over the country. Then, like policies that are put in place. So those policies, before they become policy, before they become ratified, before they become signed by the president, most of them are taken to the zona, to the geopolitical zones, because you are making those policies for people in the grassroots. So they take them there. CBOs are invited. Traditional rulers are invited. Local government chairmen, different stakeholders are invited to take part before those policies become what we implement. Then even after that, we still come together and then we do what we call the national validation before it goes to the president or for assent. So these are some of the things that are being done on the policy level, on the structural measures to ensure that people are safeguarded against this. Then awareness campaign is continuous. We engage almost every fortnightly. In fact, almost every week we engage with each state, all the subnationals. Earlier in the year, sometimes the Minister of Environment writes to all the state governors to desilt, to make sure that their waterways are made free before the rain starts. And as the rains are still here too, we still make sure we send messages to them. Then I talked about having a national flood management plan.
Okay, I need to pause you there. We have a call from Jalingo Danjuma. Danjuma, you can go ahead. When we return, Mr. Kunle will continue with his response. Danjuma from Jalingo, go ahead. Please turn down the audio of your TV.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, moderator. You see, I've been hearing what our inviters are talking. But I want to ask one question. The question is that recently, Tinubu has given all the governors, 28 governors or how many, management for that is flood prevention and ecological fund. Then how can they now be calling people to go to Abuja? Is it not the governors? They are supposed to manage this problem with NEMA. Why are they now? Where is the money? Can they relocate people from flood environment? Relocate them to where is the money? All the governors have collected this money. So Nigeria, we should not deceive ourselves. Let them go and do. How can you go to Abuja for committee and start negotiating? The NEMA has said, why don't they release the money to NEMA or other agencies to manage the flood problem? Thank you very much. I'm finished.
Professor Gambo, I can see you shaking your head. You respond to that after Mr. Kule has landed with his...
Thank you, Jumai.
Thank you. Yeah, I was saying the Ministry of Environment is currently working on a national flood management plan. And this is to ensure that flood is combated, controlled in code, because you can't really control it. What you can do is you can manage it. And in order to be able to do that, we want to be able to manage flood in a watershed way, so that each either in catchment basis or on micro catchments, so that whatever is causing that flood will be tackled from the root. If it is their livelihood, maybe they don't have a cook stove, they are now forced to deforest the place, then we give them cook stove, which teach them making briquettes and make sure that they don't touch those trees. Okay. Then we equally go into the massive afforestation. Like in the north, over 53,000 hectares of Finis dactylifera, that is Delbino, is been planted by the Ministry of Environment. The same thing with the Asa Director Indica, that is NIM, about 18,000 hectares of it have been developed. Then in carrying out, in getting this flood management plan implemented, we are equally reaching out to development partners, reaching out to donor agencies, so that, because what we are getting from the capital appropriation is almost like a drop in the ocean. So with maybe funds from those areas, then funds from the National Flood Insurance Policy, because it's going to be a contributory scheme. You have the federal government involved, you have the state government, you have the
local government,
okay. As well as individuals contributing into that, so that you now have a basket of funds called maybe the National Flood Insurance Trust Fund. So from that fund, NEMA can draw from it. Other agencies within the flood management milieu can draw from that fund. And like I said, it's equally a way to dissuade people from staying in those places.
Okay, Professor Gambo, respond to Danjuma. We are coming back to the ecological fund here now.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the ecological fund properly, but yeah. I just want to say that there has to be, like Danjuma said, a kind of paradigm shift. You know, when you look at the agencies, governmental agencies, controlling all these water issues, you see a kind of overlap. So we just have to get it practical. There has to be a kind of synergy, very definite synergy amongst them all. We are talking of a country of 92 million hectares. We cannot be talking of 18 hectares here that we did this. No, we do apologize to you, Director. Honestly, 92 million hectares, and you're talking of 10 hectares here, 10 hectares there. It doesn't sound well, definitely. So we just have to have a kind of paradigm shift. Let all these water agencies, so many of them, let them come together, form a synergy, so that all this, the kind of focus we're talking, you see, it's not just agriculture, it's not just about lives. Aviation is affected by flooding. Power is affected by flooding. Telecommunications is affected by flooding. And then apart from that, road transportation, you saw bridges from some of the, especially in Kebbi, bridges are collapsing, rail lines are collapsing. So it's a kind of huge magnitude. Definitely, Jumbai. So we just have to make sure that we put our house in order for those water agencies. Let them come together, find a single platform that they can give us, and it's not the kind of, like I told you, a 3 days warning, 2 weeks warning. Even neighbor cannot afford to move within 2 days, definitely. Even though they've done a wonderful work at the Allow Dam when it happened, but then let truth be told. So many agencies doing the same thing, plenty of overlap. I think the bureaucratic red tape need to be broken for things to go better. And finally, I want to say that, you know, flooding actually is a great advantage to us in agriculture.
You said that one time, and I asked you, why did you say that?
Yeah, the reason is not the kind of coastal flood or the pluvial flood, but then this flash flood, especially in the northern parts of the country, you know, we have what you call the Fadama areas. Areas with thick vertisols, clay soils.
You mentioned Kebbi now, and somebody is calling from Kebbi. Shamsuddin, you can go ahead, turn down the audio of your TV, please. Shamsuddin, if you can hear me, go ahead. Shamsuddin.
My name is Shamsuddin Shetima. I'm calling from Kebbi, Benin Kebbi. I think that is the hometown of the, Yes.
Go ahead.
We have recommended so many efforts. We have recommended so many efforts from NEMA, actually. But I think if we can look at the Yawuri tissue, which we expect NEMA to fully participate and then make an effort. Because we have a lot of complaints from people from that sector. Yes, they said they need NEMA to participate well. And then, secondly, sometimes,
Okay, Shamsuddin, I think we sort of get your point there. Professor Gabo, are you going to land or?
Yeah, I want to land as quickly as possible.
Yes.
So like I was saying, you know, we have this kind of Fadama areas. Coincidentally, I did my doctorate degree at Usmanu Danfodio, Sokoto. Within the university at Sokoto, you have two rivers. You have the Sokoto River flowing within the campus, and you have the Rima River also flowing within the same campus. So for you to now enter the school, you must pass these two bridges. A flood happened, and both bridges got broken. The food on campus finished. Students they cannot move out. Parents cannot come in. Lecturers cannot move out. Bread became something else. So I heard of people that had to rush through the other side of Sokoto, go through Ilela, enter Niger Republic before coming out all over again. These are the kind of scenarios we're talking about. So under such scenarios, you don't need 2 days. You don't need 3 days, honestly.
You need months to prepare.
You need months, definitely. And that's why the NIMED prediction, I'm happy with it because it came out in January. And what I have been talking, I read the report, I'm talking about their assessment for just July and September. That's all that I've been talking. It's just about their July and September, really. But then, like I told you, when the flood happens, those soils now absorb the water, and then we use them for wet season. You know, we said for us to get food security, food security, there has to be 2 seasonal farming seasons.
Dry season.
The rain and then the dry.
Okay.
And then such floods actually assist in the dry season farming.
Okay, Professor Kobo. Dr. Kana, if you're raising your hand.
Okay, thank you very
Let's
much
hear
for
you.
this opportunity.
Yes,
we
have 2 minutes too.
Okay, I want to recap on all the existing discussion.
Okay.
One, as a state government, we've been collaborating with the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency. The major challenge they have is issue of funding. I could recall about 2007, shortly after the agency was created, they set up what they call DEX officers for each state. I happen to be a DEX officer for Nasarawa. What I'm bringing is what Prof has said, the issue of bringing to one roof. That time I was the head of the roof in Nasarawa, and I was giving stipends from Nigeria Hydrological Agency so that I collect data from private boreholes and all other rivers on onward transmission to them. So I think there's a need for more robust funding to that agency so that they can move about. Then secondly, he mentioned something about having officers.
Yeah.
The major challenge they have is the issue of training and retraining. At the state level, I'm not sure we'll have 3 or 5 hydrogeologists that you can beat your chest that are competent in their own right. I'm not sure we'll have that. There's a need for them to have more funding so that we have a general training on contemporary issue. Number 3, again, issue of instrumentation. I could recall one of the groundwater motor we'll have in the state. It has a battery that is down. That battery had an issue after a year, and the simple problem was that was a year that budget overlapped, and they need to come and uptake the data. It took them about 2 years before coming. The battery died midway, and we lost the complete data. You can imagine losing a complete generation. Then now to go back to another aspect in which Prof talked about, there has not been synergy with the university. It's possible maybe depending on where he's coming from. I have been collaborating with academia in different respects. I could recall Professor Ibrahim Goni in university was sponsored, his PhD work was sponsored by Atomic Energy through your agency, which he led to the issue of dating of paleo waters, ancient waters in this country. And I think that collaboration. Then to go further, issue of impact of flooding to even groundwater system in Nigeria. We did what we call resilience in groundwater system and happened to be part of the team in Montpellier in France in 2016, which led to that study in Africa, in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we took 3 critical areas. Lagos was a case study, which was handled by Professor Tijani and Professor Olatunji, which they took Lagos as an urban area to look at the impact of flood and impact of climate change. Now, finally, that of Nasarawa, I handle that of Nasarawa as a rural state with Dr. Aisha Kana of Nasarawa University. And then finally, Maiduguri was taken as an area of insurgency, the impact to that particular area. 2 of your staff in your university, Professor Ibrahim Goni and Dr. Oyagana, also participated in that particular project, who produced a report which we presented in Croatia, in Croatia some years back, in Dubrovnik some years back. So there has been that collaboration between the academia and that. Even within the trimming project, Transformation Irrigation in Management Nigeria, which I think you'll be part of that, they produce some PhDs within even such kind of projects. So there has been the synergy. The only thing is that the issue of implementation, that is where the
implementation
whole
is key.
Implementation, issue of policy of funds, issue of overlaps of project, of even budgetary cycle. As we speak now, I would want to say open air now that even 2024 has not been fully implemented. We're talking about 2025. We're already going for midterm by August. So you can imagine now we're talking about even supplementary budget.
Yes.
So these are areas that we need to discipline ourselves, irrespective of where we're coming from. If the issue of discipline is not even there in the university, sorry to say this.
Okay. I have to stop you there. Air Commodore Kenneth Ayon, what are the challenges you need to overcome in 1 minute?
Well, thank you very much once again, Ruth. Part of the challenges we need to overcome, we need to talk to our urban and regional management bodies across the states. You know, it's one thing for us to talk about all these things. Another thing, again, like he mentioned, implementation.
And political will.
And the will, of the major actors, the governors, to relocate people from these floodplains. There is, like somebody mentioned here, in coastal areas, they must always experience flood. They must always, there are some areas that have been identified, they are high grounds, like where these people, people could be located to. in order to keep away. This cycle of we keep losing lives every year, we come back the next year, and I think we should overcome it. We should be more proactive. The state governors should implement the urban and regional management, their town planning bodies should live up to expectation and ensure that they implement so that we'll stop having people.
They should be proactive.
And then we also, sorry please, I just want to use this medium. I want to also appeal to our various stakeholders, the Nigerian Air Force, the Nigerian Army. Please do not be tired of working with NEMA. We appreciate your efforts so far in all the areas. This is the season, we're in the rainy season. All our disaster response units, we have put them on red alert. We'll be calling on you from time to time. Please help us so that we can assist Nigerians to overcome this flood disaster during this period. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Stephen, your final words.
Yes, I believe prevention is better than cure. Agencies like NISA can be strengthened to continue to forecast flooding and issue early warning. Now, when flooding occurs, governors come to the center and they collect huge amount of money. Agencies that are in the far front of flood forecasting are left dry. Nothing to write home about. So I want to appeal that agencies like NISA could better be strengthened to modernize its facilities for better flood forecasting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stephen Jabo, Technical Advisor to DG Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency. It's been a pleasure
Thank you,
having you on the program.
Thank you, madam.
Air Commodore Kenneth Oyong, Director, Search and Rescue, National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. We appreciate your insight into this conversation and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Go out there. Yes.
Thank you,
Professor Abagambo, Department of Crop Production, University of Maiduguri. We appreciate you too.
Thank you.
Dr. Kana Abubakar Ahmed, Geologist, GM, Nasarawa State Water Board. We appreciate your insight into this conversation. I hope that your state will continue to upgrade.
Something, if you have allowed me just 3 seconds. That issue of executive arrogance should be curtailed in this country. So that when you reduce executive arrogance, then people that are occupying government positions should be able to be free to speak the truth to power.
Okay, thank you so much. Kunle Awa Jemila, Deputy Director, Erosion, Flood and Coastal Management, Federal Ministry of Environment. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program. I appreciate your time and I hope that everybody watching, stakeholders will be able to take something away from this conversation we've had today. And remember, it's national, humanitarian, and developmental. Thank you so much for those who called, and we appreciate our reporters who sent us report to push this conversation forward. And on behalf of the crew, I am Jumwa Yusuf. Thanks for watching Tuesday Live.
Are you a tech enthusiast? Perhaps you want to know more about the devices and gadgets you use. Tech Mode will bridge that gap. Connects great minds while extraying everything about technology as it concerns you.
It is Tech Mode.
Tech Mode